Hello, it's Christy Johnston, Mayor of Glenorchy City Council here. Welcome to our council meeting on Monday, the 31st of August 2020. I'd like to begin tonight's council meeting by acknowledging the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the original, traditional and continuing custodians of the land that we're gathering on tonight here in council chambers and where our aldermen are as well. As I say, we are meeting tonight as a council, but we are doing it via Zoom tonight. We're trying Zoom as a meeting platform tonight, and you'll see hopefully all the aldermen in attendance up on your screen. What I will do during the meeting is I will call out aldermen to speak and to ask questions, and then obviously to record their vote. I'll do that in accordance with how they would normally sit here in our council chamber and the order they would do. So to confirm who's here in attendance today, I'll go around the table, the virtual table that is. Alderman Bull, are you present today?
Yes, I'm present.
Alderman Ryan?
Yes, I'm here.
Alderman Dunsby?
Yes, good evening, everybody.
Alderman King?
Yes, I'm here, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Yes, hello.
Myself, Mayor Johnston's here. Alderman Richardson?
Present.
Alderman Fraser?
Yep, I'm here.
Alderman Carlton?
Yes, I'm here.
And Alderman Sims?
I'm here.
Lovely. So we have no apologies tonight because everyone is here. We also have in attendance here in the council chambers the General Manager, Tony McMullen. We have a number of staff here to be able to assist us during the council meeting as well, who are joining us online as well. Item 2 is confirmation of minutes for open meeting. The motion or the recommendation is that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 27th of July 2020 be confirmed. Do I have an alderman to move this motion, please?
Alderman Ryan.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Bull.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Any discussion of the minutes? If there's no discussion, I will put the motion. I'll ask each alderman to indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
That's carried unanimously. So then move on to item 3, which is announcements by the Chair. There are no announcements for this month, so we move on to item 4, pecuniary interest notification. Do any aldermen present tonight have a pecuniary interest on an item on tonight's agenda? No one's declaring interest there. We'll move on to item 5, responses to previous public questions taken on notice. I understand that there are none, General Manager. So item 6 is public question time. Normally when we have everyone in the council chambers and we can allow members of the public to come into the council chambers, we would have an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of council for 15 minutes. Unfortunately, during the COVID restrictions, we can't have people gathering here in council chambers. So members of the public have, though, sent in some questions on notice, which we have provided in our council agenda. There are a number of them. Because they've been provided to us early and they are published in the agenda, I won't read them out tonight, but we do have questions from Mr Steenbergen of Rosetta. He's provided a number of questions on notice there tonight. And we also have a number of questions from Mr Holderness Rodham of Austin's Ferry as well. So the questions and answers have been provided in the council agenda, and I encourage you to have a look on our council website if you'd like to see the answers to those questions. Item 7 then is petitions and deputations. General Manager, do we have any tonight?
There are none.
There are none? Beautiful. Item 8 then is announcements by the Mayor. Do I have someone to move this item, please?
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Someone to second, please?
Simon Fraser.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor. I do have a question, though,
Yes.
if I may.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. It appears you met with a number of parliamentarians this month, including the Honourable Roger Yench, MP, Josh Willey, MLC, Andrew Wilkie, MP, and Senator Jackie Lambie. I'm just wondering if you can tell us what the topics of those meetings were.
Yes, certainly can. So, as the report notes, I do try to regularly touch base with members of Parliament regarding particularly COVID-19 response and how our community is travelling. I also touch base with the Greater Hobart mayors on a regular basis, at least once a week, and we collaborate a lot. But those particular meetings, the meeting with Minister Jensch was to discuss our local provisions for our planning scheme, which are out at the moment on public exhibition, and to see how we're travelling with that. Also took the opportunity to talk to him about the housing need in our community and to talk about what council is doing in terms of land disposal and how we might respond to housing need and increase in housing supply in our community. With Josh Willie, MLC member for Elwick, I had an opportunity to speak with him about the CityLink rail proposal. As you may be aware, Josh Willie is advocating on behalf of the CityLink rail proposal, so I met with him to discuss Glenorchy City Council's support for that and why it's important from a precinct planning, urban renewal, land use and housing perspective for our community in particular. Our meeting with Andrew Wilkie, I met to discuss with him a number of Australian government grants which he helped facilitate before the previous federal election and to provide him with an update on those grants, in particular the grant relating to soccer at KG5 and at North Chigwell. And then, of course, I had an opportunity to meet with Senator Jackie Lambie, where we discussed a number of things, including our COVID-19 response. We also talked about CityLink Rail and the importance of urban renewal and the opportunities, as well as outlined to her a number of the major developments that are happening in our city with our $1.5 billion pipeline of development and investment that's occurring at the moment. So I gave her a broad update in regards to that. Is there anything further, Deputy Mayor?
No, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate those updates.
No worries. I'll go around the table and ask if there are any questions or at the moment. Alderman Bull.
No, nothing from me, thank you.
Alderman Ryan, any questions? Like to speak to the motion?
No, nothing from me, thanks.
Alderman Dunsby.
Nothing from me, thank you.
Alderman King.
No, thanks, Mayor, that's fine.
Alderman Richardson.
No, that's fine, thank you.
Alderman Fraser.
No questions from me, thanks.
Alderman Carlton.
No questions from me, thank you.
Alderman Sims.
No, thank you.
No. I'll go back to the mover then, Deputy Mayor Thomas, to close debate.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion then, if you can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
Or
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
The motion is carried unanimously. So item 9 then is extending the assistance dog discount for dog registration. Do I have someone to move this item, please?
Moved, Alderman Fraser.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Someone to second?
Alderman.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Alderman Fraser, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm happy to open it up for discussion.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you. I'm happy with the motion, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ryan?
No, I'm happy with the motion as well, thanks.
Alderman Dunsby?
nothing to add to the conversation, thank you.
Alderman King?
No, I think it's a sensible motion. Thanks, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Yes, I'm happy to support this motion. I think it makes sense that we extend the dog discount, the dog registration discount to all assistance dogs, not only guide dogs and hearing dogs, but also those who are trained to perform identified physical tasks and behaviours to support people with a disability to increase their quality of life. I think it's really important that we show that support to members of the community. I did have a question though about the broader the motion that is recommended is to provide the 100% discount on dog registration for assistance dogs, and then to make changes to our dog management policy to reflect this, which I'm supportive of. I do know that our dog management policy was adopted in 2017, and I think this means it will be due for review in February 2021, which is not that far away. So I just wondered if the relevant director could give us some information on the process for that review and when that is due to commence, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll ask Robbie, our Manager of Customer Service, to provide a response to that. Thanks, Robbie.
Hello, through you, Mayor. It's a 5-year policy. The Act states that it's a 5-year policy, so it will it's due to review or it'll be due to expire in February 2022. We look next, early 2021, we're looking to commence the creation of a project plan, which will include the timelines for the whole project, and that will be communicated through aldermanic workshops to the aldermen. And then obviously part of that is the community engagement, so there'll be quite considerable community engagement involved in that as well.
Thank you very much, Robbie. Anything further, Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Great, thank you. I also note one of the recommendations is that we write to the relevant ministers for anti-discrimination and dog control, seeking that assistance dogs be given equivalent treatment to guide dogs and hearing dogs under those Act, which I think is a really great thing to advocate for. It's an administrative question really. I just ask that we can please be provided with a copy of that letter when that goes to those ministers.
We can certainly do that. That's not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further? Alderman Richardson.
No, I think I'm happy to support this. I'd just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the time and work organisations and volunteers put into training these dogs. You often run across them in public, and I always admire them for their dedication. So thank you. You do such a wonderful job.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. Just echo the comments around the table that have already been stated. It just seems like a common sense report that we've got in front of us.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims.
Yes, I'm happy to support this motion. It makes sense to extend any kind of relief that we can at the moment during these times. So, yep, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. I'll go back to the mover then, Alderman Fraser, to close debate.
Nothing further from me, thank you.
Thank you. I'll put the motion then. If you can please indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
That's carried unanimously. So item 10 is Statement of Commitment on Housing. Do I have an alderman to move this item, please? So I didn't quite catch who that was.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Sims.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm quite happy to support the housing statement of commitment on housing, recognising council's role in supporting safe and affordable housing for our community and in our community. I do note that we were provided with a revised statement with a few minor revisions this afternoon following some feedback that I provided to the relevant directors, and I appreciate those minor changes being made. To note, in particular, to note that council recognises that housing is a basic human right, that access to safe and secure housing is a basic human right, and also one of the commitments that we're making is to provide our staff and our community with knowledge and resources and training to be able to be confident in supporting people who are experiencing homelessness or housing stress, and link them to appropriate services. And so I appreciate that. There is a need for all levels of government to work together to address the problem that we are facing in Tasmania in the housing shortage, or the shortage of affordable accommodation. The stats presented to us in the report are fairly astounding in terms of the number of people in our community who are struggling to access affordable housing, and certainly it's something that I deal with every day in my everyday job, is people who are couch surfing or staying with friends and family, and you know, the impact that it has on their broader quality of life and life chances is just very extreme. So council is and has always played a role in this space, but it's really, this statement is articulating what that role is in working with other levels of government, with community organisations and with developers to do what we can. I do know that there will be an action plan developed to provide more specific detail on what we will actually do in fulfilling this role that is set out in the statement. And I do have a couple of questions about that, so whether you want me to ask those now?
Yes, please, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so my questions are in relation to, I guess, the statement and the action plan. So how will council demonstrate accountability for delivering on the statement of commitment, and the action plan that's to be developed? Will this be presented to council for approval or noting, and will it include KPIs, timeframes, and reporting mechanisms?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I might ask the Director of Development and Strategy, Sam Fox, to respond to that one.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor, for the questions. We will be developing the action plan, as we said in the report, over the coming weeks with the Housing Working Group. It will include certainly actions and timeframes and performance measures in that, and that will be provided up to Council for noting.
Thank you, Director. Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
Just comment, yes, thank you, Mayor. I'll be looking forward to seeing the action plan. Every level of government, as the Deputy Mayor said, needs to support this, and I can see by way of council with the land, with the developers, that we could liaise, and perhaps if it's for social housing, there may be some assistance we can give through there. So I'll look forward to further information on this, and so that'll do for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, just reiterate what my fellow aldermen have already said. I'm happy to support this.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Alderman Dunsby, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. I think Alderman Thomas, or Deputy Mayor Thomas, has said everything that I might have added to the discussion anyway, and I thank her for raising all those issues and the sincerity with which this document will go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman King, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think everything's been said. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Richardson, would you like to speak?
I don't think I can add to anything that's already been said. I've just noted in the report that the statistical information contained in there was based on the 2016 data. I'm assuming we'll get more updated data on that as we go forward, and as the working party does more work around that. So we just look, yeah, it'd be interesting to see the action plan going forward. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Fraser, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Alderman Carlton?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in support of the recommendation and again echo the comments around the table. I did have a question around our Deputy Mayor mentioned some minor changes that have occurred to the document, and they were circulated to Aldermen today. Should those tweaks or those changes actually be just clarified as part of tonight's meeting, so people are aware of what's changed between what was available on the attachments and what we're actually looking at now?
General Manager, we can provide that clarity certainly in the minutes. Is that perhaps the best way to provide that clarity? All Aldermen did receive that copy, so if we provide those as an attachment in the minutes, that might be the best way.
Well, perhaps we could start by just reading out the three changes. So the first change was really about recognising housing as a basic human right in the commitment statement. The second change was around the first bullet point around engagement with our community and data providers, and that was to extend our obligations from gathering information to also sharing it. And the third point was the one that the Deputy Mayor mentioned in a bit more detail, which was to replace the second bullet point in the commitment with provide our staff and residents with knowledge and confidence to help people access housing and homelessness services. So they were the three changes that were brought into the amended statement.
Thank you, General Manager. I understand that this will go up on our website as well, if it's endorsed by Council. So that will be the source of all truth is on the Council website in terms of that particular document. Is that okay, Alderman Carlton?
So did we need to change the recommendation to say the amended, the amendment attachment, the amended attachment? Sorry, I couldn't get my words out there.
That's all right. We can do that if that's okay with the Deputy Mayor and Alderman Sims to reflect that.
Yep.
Yeah, if that's necessary, I'm happy with that. Yep.
Excellent. The motion will be adopt the amended statement of commitment on housing in attachment 1. Lovely. Excellent. Anything further, Alderman Carlton?
No, that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims.
Yes, I'm very supportive of this motion, and I appreciate all of the hard work that officers have done in a very difficult time. In saying that, I think anyone putting up anything like this will know and understand that it's not the means to an end. We've still got a lot of work to do, and this is just the start of trying to address some of this problem. And I think I've been doing a lot of other work outside of council around homelessness and scoping it in our state, and it's really interesting because we really need to be looking at some of the social side of it as well. Some of the research in Tasmania and specifically in Glenorchy shows that mental and physical health is a massive issue and probably the key driver amongst systematic and legal jargon, which is something that we can help with as a local council. And like the great example was given today, as part of Christie's work, our Mayor liaising with the next level of government and ensuring some of those messages are heard on behalf of our community. But we still need to be looking at also the workforce. Financial and income is a massive, massive challenge, especially around a time like now in the community with a health crisis. So yeah, we have a long way to go, and the vast majority of people sleeping rough are actually utilising their car or local bushland or hidden spaces at other people's properties like sheds or shipping containers, parks, doorways, bus shelters and public places, and begging has increased a lot. So when you're looking at, you know, nearly half of our population living below the poverty line, and that even creeps up ratio-wise looking at the Glenorchy area, and the lack of affordable housing is one of the most common reasons as well for people to need to seek help. I think this is a great step in the right direction for our community. And what this means when a council adopts a statement of commitment is there will be an action plan that's developed, but that's off the housing working group. And it's great that we amended that today to reflect that that scope is a lot wider in gathering information. There are fantastic things going on. There are reports on this, lots and lots of reports, peer-reviewed reports, and we can get that information. It's just a matter of collating that in a really clever and savvy way and doing something about it where we can. And where we can't, communicating that to the next level of government to make sure we can. So I'm really, really, really pleased to see this and very much in support of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Sims. I might just quickly speak to the motion just to do a shameless plug for Sleep Out for the Salvos, which is being held this week, where community leaders right around the state are coming together and sleeping rough out just for one night out in the cold with a few creature comforts, I have to admit, but to try and raise awareness of homelessness in our community and also to raise really important funds for the Salvation Army, who do an immense amount of work in this particular area. I have to say that Salvation Army working very closely with our local community and really do understand the needs of those experiencing homelessness. So I encourage members of the public who might be watching our council meeting tonight to support those who are participating in Sleep Out for the Salvos, and of course always support the Salvation Army. They do a tremendous amount of work to support those most in need in our community. So I encourage you to hop onto their website and donate generously this month. I'll go back to the mover then, Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to hear there is genuine and sincere support around the table, to borrow the words of Alderman Dunsby. quite clearly it's something that we're all committed to and quite passionate about. We have really good awareness around the table of the plight of people experiencing homelessness or housing stress, which all impact on quality of life. And as Alderman Sims rightly pointed out, often homelessness is intertwined with mental health issues and quite often trauma history as well. So there's it is a significant problem. It's one of those wicked social problems that is difficult to solve, and we need to be contributing to it. So look forward to seeing the action plan.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I will put the motion then. If you indicate for or against. Alderman Ball.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
That's carried unanimously. So move on to item 11, which is Special Committee's Annual Report. Do I have someone to move this recommendation, please?
Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Dunsby, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you. Yes, when you read the combined efforts of these particular special committees of council, it sees how we have volunteers in our community ready to step up and assist us in these particular areas of expertise. I'm lucky enough to sit on 2 of these committees, and I know that the valuable input that we do receive from them on those particular subjects as well. I can but commend everybody who's involved. I also acknowledge all the staff who contribute to make these committees active and as versatile and achieving as they are. So I'd like to throw it open for discussion if anybody else would like to add to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm fine with the motion, thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman King.
No, nothing to add, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question, if I may, please.
Yes.
It's great that we are receiving this annual report outlining some of the activities and the intentions going forward of our special committees. But I feel as a council, I'd like to get more regular insight into what each of the committees is doing. Not all aldermen sit on committees, and it's important that we have that awareness. So I have asked a couple of times if we can have access to the minutes of special committee meetings provided through our docs on tap, and I'm just wondering when I can have an update as to how that can be progressed.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I might ask Marina, our Manager of Community, to respond to that one.
Thank you. Yes, through you, Mayor. And I think also if I can acknowledge with the Deputy Mayor and to apologise that the Deputy Mayor was omitted from consultations noted as being consulted with the writing of that report. And we will amend the report to include the Deputy Mayor, so my apologies for that. Also, just to acknowledge that the annual reports, we have given a commitment that the annual report will go onto the website, so we will follow that through as soon as possible. With regard to the access to the minutes, and I think there was a misunderstanding from my part there, because I'd understood the request for the minutes was for those to be placed on the website. Absolutely, we can have those minutes provided on docs on tap so that they're available to aldermen. I'll just like to explain a bit the process we've been through, if I can, Mayor, that with the committees we have worked through guidelines for good meetings, and that's been a really good process to develop those guidelines with the committees. But through that process, we explored the option of the minutes going on the website, and at this point in time, it's not within our existing policy framework for that to occur. And I think it's really for us to close the loop on that discussion so that we have some agreement about that. So there is still some conversation to be had. The provision of the annual report is very much included in our policy framework. But I'd also like to make a note, if I can, that the committee's roles are regularly reported in council meetings. You can see from this annual report the level of engagement that the committees have been involved with and the contribution they have made across the council in a range of different areas. Which has been very positive, and it's very positive to see that reported through. So just to recap there, yeah, my apologies, I'd misunderstood that. So we will see that the documents go to council, to docs on tap, and also to make those amendments as the amendment to the report to acknowledge the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Marina. Anything further, Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Yep, thank you, Marina, for answering those questions and for acknowledging that. I appreciate that. I guess I just add, as the chair of the Healthy Communities Committee, the action plan, the Healthy Communities Action Plan, which is running up until 2023. The committee has sort of looked at the goals and the objectives and the actions in that action plan a number of times since the committee was in existence, and acknowledged that it is I think it has around 129 actions. So we've really tried as a committee to rationalise, I guess, what a few key actions are that can make a difference in our community, in the health and wellbeing of our community, and we continue to work on that. The community development team, and together with the property and assets team, contribute to the goals in the Healthy Communities Plan. Well, I mean, it's across council really, but those two teams in particular. Health and wellbeing needs to be considered across what we do across our council, but one of the particular areas we've identified for the next 6 to 12 months, as you would have noted in the report, is looking at reinvigorating or assessing what we do with our Glenorchy on the Go brand and program for promoting health and wellbeing, healthy lifestyle choices and opportunities, and promoting health and wellbeing more broadly to support and enable healthy choices in our community. So that's something that I look forward to continuing to support as chair of the Healthy Communities Advisory Committee, and I look forward to seeing the work in the future months, and invite my fellow aldermen to give me your thoughts on how we make a difference in that area.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Richardson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm happy to receive and note the report. Just as chair of the Arts and Cultural Committee, I just like to just add that COVID, as you're aware of, has had a huge impact on us, and I think it's fair to say that it's hit the art and entertainment sector more than most. Public events since March have had to be deferred or moved online wherever possible. So I just want to just take the opportunity to wish and just to thank all involved with this work and for their quick response, and I commend them for being innovative and flexible, and for their dedication to delivering art and culture programs in Glenorchy under very difficult circumstances. They produce some great work. So, but as you're aware, the Arts and Culture Strategic Plan is being developed, and a lot of work is happening in this space. So we look forward to the outcome of that, which will map out the future for arts and culture in Glenorchy for some years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Fraser.
No, nothing further from me, thanks.
Thank you. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to receive and note the report. One thing that really stood out for me this year as a member of the Access Committee is just how much input the committee had this year, and particularly within our report on page 29, it talks about the community consultation. And it really stood out to me how the special committees are actually adding value to what council's doing, and are actually seen as a really useful way to get feedback from the community. And I know through the Access Committee, that feedback that has come through that group back through to council has helped to create some better projects and some better outcomes for the community. And it's a way that many of the people who are on the Access Committee may not have been able to be involved in community consultation before. So I think it's in the last 12 months, for me, it's really stood out as to how these groups have actually helped council engage with more people in the community. And there's quite a significant number of different special committees that are operating and help represent the different views of council. So it's been great to have a stronger way of getting those voices heard.
Thank you very much, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims.
Yes, it's been refreshing to see the improvements this year. Well, whether it's improvements or not, but we've definitely been able to see that work flow through and see some of those outcomes turn up in the strategic side of our work. I'm probably devil's advocate here. I think it's really important that we celebrate the wins and we unpack those with the public and explore our processes and the steps towards those and how they have contribution. But one thing I do note through all of the committees that I'm working on is that there are other people on those committees who have issue with the way it is. And I think, generally speaking, without going into it too much, it's something we need to unpack, and we are discussing it as a council in workshops, how committees better drive our council strategically rather than just add value or contribute. Committees are supposed to drive council on behalf of our strategic planning and actions, not just contribute and add value. And as aldermen on those committees, it's our role to facilitate that at the next level as well. So I think we've still got a little bit of work to do, and that's the feedback we're getting from other members on the committee, that they don't feel that that's happening. Perhaps as an example, at other councils who strategically drive a lot of the motions, and they've done the consultation and they've been able to liaise with the experts. So I can see some outcomes and the way they're happening more robustly elsewhere. And I think that we can work in that space as a team, as a leadership team, and ensure that we are still improving in those processes as well, and ensuring those committee members are heard and that we are driving more than just contributing or adding value. So, thank you. I'll be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Likewise, I'll also speak to the motion as Chair of the Safer Communities Advisory Committee, and to thank the dedicated members of that particular committee. I sit on it with Alderman Dunsby, and I think I speak with Alderman Dunsby that we have an incredibly passionate group of people sitting around the committee table regards to safer communities. We adopted the Safer Community Framework 2019 to 2029 recently, and whilst COVID has had an interruption to our normal processes for our meetings and the normal work plan that we would have, the passion is very clear around that committee table in terms of wanting to make sure that we can deliver for our community, and particular focus, which I think is important in this COVID-19 world, on creating a connected community and recognising everyone's value, worth, respect and safety within our local community, and recognising ourselves as a welcoming city. The framework is all about being tough on the causes of crime, not on crime itself, and recognising that significant disadvantage is occurring in our community. But if we work together and connect as a community, then we can achieve great things together. So I want to thank the dedicated members of the Safer Communities Advisory Committee for their hard work, and really look forward to working with them into this financial year. So I'll go back to the mover then, Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you, Mayor, and I echo your comments about the Safer Communities Committee. Also, I have the privilege of chairing the Access Advisory Committee, and I'd have to say that the feedback that I have from them is perhaps contrary to the view that Alderman Sims has expressed tonight. They're very active and very committed, and they value add to every conversation and everything that we do. And I think that was truly reflected in the areas where we had community consultation through the last 12 months, where some of the consultants or staff members who, once they had a briefing with the Access Committee, broadened their horizons and incorporated all those access issues that suit the whole community, not just people with a disability, to be able to engage and extend those projects further. And we're going to see that coming out in the parks and also in the master plan that will be happening up in the Tolosa Park area. So again, I reiterate the comments around the table and thank all those volunteers for their time, and look forward to onwards and upwards with each of those committees. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alderman Dunsby. I'll put the motion then. You indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
It's carried unanimously. So moving on to item 12, which is financial performance to 31 July 2020. Do I have an alderman to move this item, please?
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Richardson, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm happy to receive and note the report. I noted in the operating result is 1 million better than budget, and revenue is 219,000 above budget, and expenditure is 787,000 below budget due to sub delays. However, that will be spent over the next few months when programs catch up. A revised budget has been included in the papers for adoption, and thanks to the Australian Government Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program, a further 579,000 will be added to this financial year's capital works program, which is good. It was great to read that since the COVID-19 community assistance package was adopted to assist ratepayers, a total of 1.9 million was rebated back. Rental waivers for council tenants amounted to 657,000, which is in line with our assistance strategy, so that was good to see. And it was also pleasing to note that all applications that have been processed so far for financial hardship customers and rent relief for council's commercial tenants have been successful with their application. And I believe there are still some more applications to be processed. So it's all great. So thank you, Mayor. That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's been well covered, so I thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan.
No, I have nothing to add, thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby.
No, nothing from me, thank you.
Alderman King.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question, if I may, please.
Yes.
I note that the report says that we've had 26 applications for financial hardship and rent relief. I'm just wondering if it's possible to know the breakdown of whether they were rate relief applications due to hardship or commercial rent relief.
So I'll ask our Manager of Finance to respond to that question. Tina.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you, Mayor. Yes, absolutely correct, Deputy Mayor Thomas. We've received 26 applications to date. 5 of those applications have been for commercial rent relief or waiver, and the other 21 have been for assistance and relief under our financial hardship policy for non-commercial ratepayers.
Thank you, Tina. Anything further, Deputy Mayor Thomas?
No, thank you. I appreciate that information.
Thank you. Alderman Fraser.
Just a question seeking some clarification on the relationship between this motion and the next one. So there's $1 million quoted here as a figure that's coming below budget. So I noticed that there's reference made to the next agenda item on the revised budget, but what can someone clarify what the relationship is there? Is there any relationship between them or not?
Again, the Manager of Finance, Tina.
Thank you, Mayor. So, through you, Mayor. Yes, Alderman Fraser, it is interesting timing having both the current financial report and also an amended budget coming forward for consideration by Council this evening. So these figures are to the end of July and represent the budgeted figures that were approved by Council at the June Special Council meeting. These figures do not currently reflect the proposed amended budget that is the agenda item this evening. the $1 million underspend that you're referring to in these papers is very much a timing issue. In the papers it mentions, I think it's 3 invoices that are strictly timing, that invoices that weren't received in time to be processed by the end of July to be included in the figures, but have subsequently been processed and paid during the month of August. So there is a catch-up period there.
So it's just a coincidence that the revised figures are about $1 million.
That's correct, yes, very much coincidental and yes, very confusing.
Okay.
Anything
Thank
further,
you.
Alderman Fraser?
No.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Carlton?
Thank you, Mayor. I had some similar questions to Alderman Fraser in the section there around expenditure and the commentary around if we were to adopt the amended budget, that would change how we're tracking. So it'll just be interesting over the next couple of months. From what I'm hearing around the table, that we're actually on track in terms of expenditure. It was a timing issue. So it'll be interesting to see. We have a report tonight about potential amendment to the budget, and then one again in January. So I think it's going to have to be something that we all keep a pretty close eye on over the next couple of months, while we understand what the implications are of COVID and how that will affect our revenue and what we can do with our expenditure.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims?
Yes, yeah, I agree. I think that in the current climate, it makes sense for these motions to come up one after another, and we will just need to keep a close eye on it and be adapting as we move forward as a team. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. I'll go back to the move of the motion. Alderman Richardson?
Happy to go to the vote, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. I'll put the motion if you can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull?
For.
Alderman Ryan?
For.
Alderman Dunsby?
For.
Alderman King?
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson?
For.
Alderman Fraser?
For.
Alderman Carlton?
For.
And Alderman Sims?
For.
Motion is carried unanimously. So item 13 is revised budget 2020-21. Do I have an alderman to move this item, please?
Alderman Sims.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Someone to second?
Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward after our last conversations and the direct link it has. So I'm happy to put it up on the table for other people to discuss as needed.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Ryan?
No, I have nothing to add, thanks.
Alderman Dunsby?
Nothing from me, thank you, Mayor.
Alderman King?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question. I'm not sure who it's directed to, but point 2.3 employee costs. Hopefully I'm on the right one here. Due to an oversight in the original budget, did not allow for funding of 2 existing positions in the in the organisational structure. I'm just trying to work out how we have an oversight for existing positions, if that could be explained, please. It's a couple $100,000. If the positions are already there, I'm just not quite sure how we miss them.
General Manager?
I didn't quite catch the question, sorry.
So the question from Alderman King there was regarding 2.3 employee costs. Due to an oversight, the original budget did not allow for funding of 2 existing positions in the organisational structure. The question was just, how did that occur?
So the particular positions, so one was an internal relocation and the other one was we had a long-term vacancy in our information management section that flew under the radar. So I believe the funds were there, but they weren't identified within the employee budget. But the Manager of Finance can probably answer in a bit more detail in relation to that.
Just on that question, if I may, then, so they were budgeted for, but not allocated.
We'll get Tina to provide some clarification for that one. Tina?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. So within our existing systems, the two positions actually existed in our HR system. They were vacant positions, and at the time the original budget was prepared, excuse me, there was an incorrect assumption made that they were not going to be filled this coming financial year. So they were omitted from the original budget figures. That has subsequently been rectified to reflect the fact that the positions existed and also will be filled during this current financial year.
Okay, so that's a bit of a different explanation the way I read this. That makes sense if you thought they weren't going to be filled, but now we realise they needed to be filled. So that makes a little more sense. Thank you.
Anything further, Alderman King?
No, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
No, nothing to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Richardson.
No, nothing further, Mayor.
Alderman Fraser.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, only just to make a statement that I think this is a powerful lesson about how much faith you can put in long-term financial management plans, which were recently described to us as Disneyland. Within the space of a few months, there's nearly $1 million, which in this case has come under the budget, so it's in our favour, but could have just as easily gone the other way. And if you extrapolate that over 2, 5, 10 years, you can see how widely your projections can be out of whack with reality. So I still think that, as far as I'm concerned, I'm very dubious that we can run a budget deficit like we have this year and still end up with a surplus in 10 years' time without imposing quite large rate rises on our community. But I guess it remains to be seen, and probably the results of what we're approving will be, we'll find out long after many of us have left the automatic table.
Thank you, Alderman Fraser. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's going to be very helpful for us over the next couple of months, particularly when we receive this document again in around January. It's very difficult at the moment to do any sort of 12-month or 24-month budgeting. So I'm confident that our staff are looking at this frequently and that we will get another opportunity to review this come January to see how we're tracking.
Thank you very much, Alderman Carlton. It's pleasing to see the revised budget come to us. We did commit in June, given the uncertainty in the world created by COVID-19, that we would bring back a revised budget and to review it, and it's really important that we do so. I know Alderman Fraser's comments and concerns regarding long-term financial management plans and the difficulty when you're trying to forecast over a long period of time, particularly if it's a 10-year period of time. The Local Government Act does require us to have one, so we are compliant with the Local Government Act, but I do appreciate the concerns around trying to project what might happen in 10 years' time when, as we know, a global pandemic can hit us and change the world completely in a matter of months. However, it's really important that we do, as aldermen and as an aldermanic body, have a view to where we want to be heading and to look at trends in particular in our financial management and how can we try and alleviate some of the challenges or stresses that might be heading our way in the future. Obviously, we can't predict what the future holds, but we can try and put in place some measures to control what we do know will happen. It's really important from an asset management planner's perspective as well that we understand what our needs are in our community in terms of our asset base. We hold a lot of assets on behalf of the community, and so it's really important that we can forward project what our expenditure requirements might be for there, and then to be able to marry that up with what our revenue might be. We did commit in our June council meeting, our special council meeting, that whilst we did have a significant deficit, and it was $9.6 million predicted at the June meeting, that we would plan for a slow and steady recovery back to a surplus position. Our long-term financial management plan predicts that slow and steady recovery of an increase of around 2.5% rate revenue year on year. We're not predicting large increases, but obviously we do need to be very careful and monitor the situation. We hope that things like COVID doesn't hit again, but we are subject and vulnerable to external pressures. But likewise, we do have a few levers that we can pull at council to try and ensure that we stick on the track that we're trying to trend towards. So I commend to you the revised budget, the Alderman, and think it's really important that we continue to monitor this very carefully, given the flexibility or the situation we find ourselves with COVID-19. I'll go back to the mover then, Alderman Sims.
Yes, I think you might have missed me on the last round, perhaps.
No, sorry, since you moved the motion, so you got to speak first.
Oh,
so you're coming back to closed debate.
Yes, no, well, you actually said a fair bit of what I was planning to say. And I think there is it can be a bit disheartening when we've been doing a lot of training around budgets just for the public's sake, just so they know, as an automatic body, in workshops and having facilitated training by experts as well. So I think taking that on board, we have heard that, long-term planning is you can have great dreams and forecast the contingencies and think that you're ready, and that can change in a second. You've got to be absolute champions of change management and be able to take that on board as you go. But it is important to have long-term planning as a goal and have those goal setting and have a guide to be working towards, and make sure you actually know what you're doing then as a council and how you're servicing your community, because we are very, very much assets and service based kind of business. So yes, that's it, really important points, and I think the training we've been having has added a lot of value to each alderman's knowledge base around this, which I think was quite good. We're working great as a team in this aspect, and that's only added value for Glenorchy City. So very happy to see the work that's done and the outcomes actually happen in the operations as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Sims. I'll put the motion then. If you can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
That's carried unanimously. Item 14, disposal long-term lease of council land at 16 and 18 Grove Road, Glenorchy KGV Soccer facility. Do I have someone to move this motion, please?
Move, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Bull.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. I note the feedback that's been provided by the community in the initial consultation process on their proposed disposal of this land by way of long-term lease. I know we got one objection from the feedback that was provided, and that was around a community member's concerns that the facility be maintained and used in the broadest possible way. And I think this initial investigation pre-Section 178 process is showing us is that it provides a great opportunity for interested community members to liaise with council on concerns and visions for use of particular public land in our community. So I think it's working really well, and potentially circumvents the need for community members to go through the more formal and structured Section 178 process, whereby their concerns may not be able to be addressed unless they're put in a certain way. So I think it's a really great process that we're going through. The long-term lease of this site is important for surety for the users, but the community must be able to provide feedback, and we must be able to on the use of assets it owns, and we must be able to demonstrate both a value for, value for our community in the return that we get from rent from a community facility, and we must be able to balance that with the contribution that that community organisations who lease council facilities are providing back to our community socially. So it's an interesting balance to strike. We've had a number of conversations with council around that, and we will continue to have those conversations. But great to see that evaluation will be obtained as part of the next part of the process too. All in all, happy to support commencing the formal Section 178 process that is required under the Local Government Act to dispose of land by way of lease for a period of 5 years or greater, and see what comes back as a result of that process.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's been well covered, and I think it's just important for the public to realise we're not actually disposing of land. It is a lease that's greater than 5 years. That's why this process has to proceed. That's all I'd like to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan.
No, I have nothing to add, thanks.
Alderman Dunsby.
Nothing from me, thank you, Mayor.
Alderman King.
Just agree with Alderman Bull's comments on gratefully put it that way because it can be confusing to the public.
Thank you. Alderman Richardson.
No, I just want to add that this is a great initiative designed to maximise the funding available to achieve better outcomes for our kids and for sporting groups in our community. So I'm happy to go to the S178 process. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Fraser.
No, nothing further from me. Thank you.
Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. Very supportive of this recommendation. As already has been stated, we're just forming an intention to go to a section 178. I did note something in the report that I was hoping to get a little bit more clarification around, which is in the community consultation section on page 54. So, we note that we've already conducted the initial community engagement, and that by adopting the recommendations tonight, we'll be proceeding with formally advertising the intention. There'd be a 21-day period where people could actually respond, and that would be anyone from the initial engagement, as well as anyone else in the community who would have opportunity to make formal submissions. But we also say that it's recommended that council undertake further consultation with Glenorchy Knights Football Club and Football Tasmania. So I just wanted to get a little bit of extra information around that part of the community consultation and why that's been recommended.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. I might see if Alex Woodward, our Manager of Environment, Waste and Property, can answer that one.
Through you, Mayor. Thank you, Alderman Carlton, for the question. Essentially, we are still working closely with Football Tasmania and the Knights in regards to the lease arrangement and also to the project that is there. So as part of the recommendation, it's just to continue that discussion and to work through, obviously, the solution for the site and the ongoing lease as well.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Sims.
Yes. Just like to ask a question, and maybe if Alex stays on the line.
Yes.
Just for the benefit of the public as well, I'm looking at these types of negotiations, and on page 55 of the agenda, it's got a table with land sold for less than $1 million and where the proceeds are allocated. And there's, because I really appreciate the work that's been done by the officers and the amount of consultation that we've had around this at a leadership level within the council. And I just thought it would be really good to speak to the difference between where they're allocated, the 25% going to the reserve fund and 75% going to the special projects.
I'll just interrupt you there, sorry, Alderman Sims. We're still on item 14, so you've just jumped ahead of us into item 15, which is a great question, but I'll ask you to hold that one for item 15 if I can.
No worries, sorry.
So item 14 was the disposal of the long-term lease of council land at Grove Road for the KG5 soccer facility. Did you have any?
I'm with you. No questions around that, sorry.
That's okay, no worries. So we'll go back then to the mover, Deputy Mayor.
I have nothing further to add. I appreciate the contributions of my fellow aldermen around the table, and as I say, look forward to see what comes back from the Section 178 process and hopefully progressing with the lease arrangements.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll put the motion if you can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor.
For.
Mayor Johnson is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
That's carried unanimously. So we move on to item 15, which is proceeds of property disposals policy. Do I have someone to move this item, please?
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Someone to second, please.
Alderman King.
Ryan.
Thank you, Alderman King. Alderman Richardson, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I haven't got a lot to add to this, just that the intent of the policy is to increase the benefits of open spaces for disposing of land that is not used and not fit for purpose and costs maintained, so that we have funds to inject into spaces that will benefit the community by new and improving existing spaces. So I'm happy to support that motion.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ryan.
No, nothing to add, thanks.
Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. I believe it's fairly self-explanatory, so I have nothing to add to the debate. Thank you.
Alderman King.
Thank you, Mayor. The motion that keeps on giving, we keep finding land, which is good that's not appropriate or useful, and one day it'll run out, but I can't, it just keeps coming, so well done to our property department.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to speak to the motion. I think it's really important we have, for accountability, that we have a framework to apply in deciding how the funds from the sale of community assets are used, and to ensure the disposal of assets results in better outcomes for the community than outcomes that would have resulted from maintaining or from retaining and maintaining the assets. The policy sets out that we are to establish 2 reserve funds and sets out the criteria under which proceeds of disposal of council-owned property will be allocated into those 2 funds. I do have a couple of questions though, if I may. So in the definitions of the policy, it talks about the council property is defined as council-owned land or buildings. But then throughout the policy, there's a lot of text referring just to land which is sold, in particular in section 5. So I wonder for clarity if we should instead refer to council property rather than land, just to avoid any ambiguity, if the intention is in fact that the policy will apply to all disposal of any land or buildings that council owns. So just a bit of clarity on that. I think the intention is the policy applies to any council property, be it land or buildings. And so that definition of council property includes land or buildings, so should be used consistently throughout the policy, council property, rather than the words land or buildings exclusively. And that's my first question.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll throw that question to our Director of Infrastructure and Works, Ted Ross.
Yeah, thank you for the question through you, Mayor. The terms, for the purpose of the policy, what we've considered here is the terms land, public land and council property are all interchangeable. So the term land includes land itself and any fixtures or buildings. So we're happy as a policy that it can remain, but it's up to Aldermen if they would like to clarify it further.
You have a second question there, Deputy Mayor?
Yes, and I think I'd be interested to hear other Aldermen's views, but I think to avoid any ambiguity, either the term council property be used consistently or another definition is included where land is defined as including land or buildings.
So, Deputy Mayor, we can't open it up to debate on that particular one. If you want to ask your second question, and then Alderman can speak to it as they go around.
Right.
Yeah.
My second question is in relation to what, and this is semantic, so perhaps it's really, now I'm thinking about it, we're naming one of the funds the Special Projects Reserve Fund, which is quite clear. The intent is that that particular fund is for special projects to be determined, approved by council, and the other fund we're naming Property Disposals Reserve Fund, when really both the funds are coming from property disposals. So I thought perhaps the other fund would be better named, more appropriately be named the Open Space Reserve Fund, to more clearly signal the purpose of the use of the funding rather than where the funding is coming from.
Again, I'll throw to the Director of Infrastructure and Works, Ted Ross.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Look, I guess in developing the name, we used one where we thought it was clear in terms of where the funds had originated from. The other reason we chose Property Disposal Reserve Fund was because Council does have an existing public open space reserve and asset sales reserves, which are unfunded revenue reserves, and we're just trying to separate the name from those other reserves. So that's our thinking and reasoning. But again, you know, if aldermen think that they, you know, to change the name, we're happy to take advice on that.
Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
Sorry, can you just clarify again that other we already have an open space reserve?
We also have what's called a public open space reserve, which is an unfunded reserve, which we've had in the past, which is where we get some, you know, contributions and so forth that had gone towards it, but it hasn't been funded. So it's a reserve in name only, and whereas this is going to be, you know, the proceeds from the sale of council land will go directly into this, and it will be real funds in a real bank account.
Right. Okay.
Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
No, thank you.
Alderman Fraser.
No, I've got nothing further to add. Thank you.
Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Alderman Sims is going to ask the question that I was going to ask as well, so nothing from me.
Alderman Sims.
Yes, I might just ask a question through you, Mayor, to Ted, the Director, in regards to just some of those comments, using the language of, sorry, I'm just checking if my computer's working, it's playing up, around the land and the property and using several different terminologies for the same action or the same, you know, title. Is there a reasoning? What's the rationale for that? Is that because that's the language in some of the legislation you're using, or is it, what's the rationale?
Look, through you, Mayor, I guess it's just to make it more easily and readable, the terminology, the land has been, you know, used throughout, as, you know, Alderman Thomas identified. But, you know, because it's a policy, I guess there's not it's not like a, you know, significant legal document where you're trying to make a watertight sort of situation, where it is a policy document, which is why I guess the type of language you can use is to make it more readable for the community and other people when they're reading it as well. So
it's an internal document, and I think for the purpose of what you've just said, it would actually be more accessible and easy for our community if it was consistent language, if you use the same language. But I'd understand if you were using different language, because it'd be referring. So say looking at the planning scheme or looking at other legislation around building codes, things like that, they may use terminology to mean the same thing. They may say property, some of them may say land, some of them, you know, might say different things to mean the same thing. So it would be important that that was reflected in our internal policy as well, for ease of interpreting. But if there isn't that problem, I wouldn't see why we wouldn't change it to be consistent internally.
And look, through you, Mayor, we're happy to maybe expand the table, the definitions table, to reflect some of that terminology, to maybe just clarify that a bit more if Alderman thought that was appropriate.
General Manager, you'd like to contribute and clarify? Thanks,
Mayor. I was just going to mention that looking at the Local Government Act around the purchase, acquisition, sale and lease of property, interestingly, it's called property in terms of division, the name of the division in the Act, but it does talk then about land, and I note that, for example, public land is referred to and includes land that provides, e.g. health, recreation, amusement or sporting facilities for public use. So it seems to me that the Act itself does use the terms property and land interchangeably, as the Director indicated before.
Yeah, that makes sense now. Thank you.
And Alderman Sims, you had a question regarding...
I did, yes. Can we wind back and go back to it? Do you need me to ask it again, or...?
Yes, please, if you could. Thank you. My memory's not that good.
Okay, I'll just have to quickly flick back and make sure I'm on the right agenda item again. It was just around the different allocations of that land disposal fund, how we've got 25% going to one and 75% going to projects. If maybe someone could speak to that a little bit, just for the public.
So this is in relation to land with no open space zoning or designation, the 25% and 75%?
So it looks like open space, there's different categories, and if we are receiving proceeds from disposal of land or property, and not open space necessarily, because it says land entirely zoned or designated open space, 100% of net profits to property disposal reserve fund. But if land is partially zoned, designated open space, it's slightly different, and I suppose it would depend on the individual land being disposed and how that was servicing the community. But it says land with no open space zoning or designation, 25% of the net proceeds go to property disposal reserve fund and 75% go to special projects. And I know that we've done a lot of work as a leadership team around this, and we've driven some of this to occur, so I understand why and how this has come about. But I just thought, for the sake of the public, maybe Alex or Ted to speak to that.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. Alex, Manager of Property.
For you, Mayor. Thank you for the question, Alderman Sims. So essentially, to clarify, what we're trying to achieve there is, if the land is zoned or designated open space, what we're wanting to see is 100% of those net proceeds to go into the Property Disposals Reserve Fund, which will go directly back into open space or recreation, those type of activities within the community. So the community will receive a direct benefit from that. With land that's, that doesn't have any open space or designation, so say for instance an example might be a house, just a residential house that council owns. So the public's not necessarily getting any benefit from that property as far as an open space perspective. So we'd see that 25% of those proceeds would go back into the open space, and 75 would go into Special Projects Reserve Fund, which looks at different things like it could be investigating other opportunities, so not necessarily having to do directly with the land. And for the partially zoned or designated, one of those would be it'd be pro rata allocated depending on how much of the land was open space or how much was zoned a different zone for a different use.
Thank you.
I'll go back to the mover then, Alderman Richardson.
No, nothing further, Dad. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. I'll put the motion then, if you can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
The motion is carried unanimously. Item 16 is footpath policy. Do I have someone to move this item, please?
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Richardson.
Thank you, Alderman Richardson. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'm quite happy to see this motion come before council. I think it's really great that we will have, that we are revising our policy to set out standards in with a hierarchy approach applying to the provision and construction of footpaths in our municipality. We did have a workshop on this, footpaths and curb ramps, I should say. We did have a workshop on this to learn about the options for provision of footpaths, and we recently undertook a survey which we got a really great response to in our community using the social pinpoint tool to identify gaps in our footpaths and trails network. The new policy introduces a hierarchy, as I've said, and sets targets based on this hierarchy. Also introduces a technical guideline and details the standards of footpaths and curb ramps to be included in new subdivisions. Distinguishes highly used pedestrian routes to less frequently used routes, with 4 categories being CBD, primary, secondary and local. And the level of service is to be applied in these different categories, which makes sense, I think, in order to apply our budgets to get the best outcomes for our community. And the level of service includes the type of material to be used to construct the footpath and the width, with all widths to be wheelchair friendly across the different categories. But I did have a couple of questions, if I may, please, Mayor.
Yes, of course.
The policy refers to categories which are based on usage. So who determines which category any particular footpath in any particular area is in, and based on what data? And should how this is determined also be outlined in the policy? That's my first question. My second question is, can you please explain in a nutshell why asphalt will now be the most commonly used material, given this is a marked shift from the previous policy which stated that concrete was the preferred material, because the previous policy claimed that it was more cost effective and durable than asphalt? And a third question, can you please provide clarity on what the policy means for footpaths on both sides of the road in cul-de-sacs? I've tried to interpret the policy and guideline and can see there appears to be some discretion for the director, but I'm still not clear on what this means. And finally, the technical guideline appears to refer to a 5th category being rural. However, there are only 4 categories listed in the policy. So should rural be referred to as its own category?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Director of Infrastructure and Works, Ted Ross.
Thanks, Alderman Thomas, for your questions. Through you, Mayor. The first question in regards to how the categories were developed, I guess our infrastructure engineering and design team have done a lot of work in this area, and our transport engineer undertook an analysis around pedestrian traffic in areas, and that was largely developed through looking at key pedestrian nodes like bus stops, schools, shops, aged care facilities, high generation areas, and by doing those, developing 400 metre radius around some of those key nodes, they developed this heat map. And they overlaid that on our existing footpath network that then allowed us to identify, the different hierarchies and the different categories. So there's a fair bit of work that went into it, but there was also a little bit of discretion in regards to making sure that there's linkages between the different hierarchy areas and also accounting for some of the future demand. And I guess the other thing that they've built into the policy is this system for reviewing as part of our ongoing work that we do. And the policy refers to that, and I guess the responsibility for the policy is within the Infrastructure and Works Directorate. That's sort of the first question. The second question around asphalt, I guess, just in a nutshell, our previous policy was concrete, and that's considered the most cost-effective material when you're looking at a really long period. So when we do an analysis of over 100 years, that that shows up as being a very cost-effective way, but it would cost us a budget of $4 million per year. So by using asphalt, we've been able to use a material which is affordable in the short to medium term, and that means that we only have to spend a budget of $2.5 million a year, so a $1.5 million lower reduction, and that means that we can deliver that service level that our community are wanting. But that's the difference between the policies in a nutshell. The next question around cul-de-sacs, the discretion element is really only where in some developments where a developer can show a substantial benefit. And I'm just trying to think of an example where, say, if you've got some very steep terrain, you might negotiate with a developer to provide a narrow road or the removal of one of the footpaths in order to actually help improve some of the accessibility for residents above and below a road. So otherwise the policy is strictly footpaths on both sides. And why that discretion's with the director is largely around the statutory frames around planning process, versus not being able to facilitate. So taking that back to council for consideration, you'd add a significant amount of time to development. And just the last question was around the rural. The rural fifth category rule not being within the policy, and that was because no footpaths are required under the relevant standards in rural areas, so therefore no category was assigned. So the guideline covers areas where there might be a provision for a future footpath. So a rural road might, for example, increase in land use through a change in land use might then require a footpath. So, but just thank you to Alderman Thomas for providing those questions in advance. I had some time to study up on them.
Thank you, Ted. Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
No, I think that answers my questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I think all the questions that have been raised have answered what I did have. I noted the change in what was originally with the concrete footpaths, but that's all been explained now. So I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan.
No, nothing from me, thanks.
Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. As orated by Alderman Bull, I believe my questions, particularly around the surface treatments, have been answered there. Just wanting to clarify that any new developments will be done in concrete going forward.
Director of Infrastructure Works, Ted Ross.
Yes, through you, Mayor, that's what our policy states.
Thank you.
Alderman King.
Thank you, Mayor, that's fine.
Alderman Richardson.
That's fine, Mayor, thank you.
Alderman Fraser.
Nothing further, thank you.
Alderman Carlton.
Nothing from me, thank you.
And Alderman Sims.
Yes, just a question through the Mayor to maybe either Ted or the General Manager in regards to sustainable road surfaces, and just whether they would be happy to speak to why we're not going down that road, such as Kingborough Council, in regards to sustainability goals and things like that, using reused materials, recycled materials, and the cost and things like that, perhaps? I know I'm getting a lot of questions around why aren't Glenorchy doing it that way, and why are we using concrete when that's proven to be a heat jungle for climate change and things like that. So could we, and I know the cost far outweighed using the sustainable materials, so perhaps either Ted or the General Manager could speak to why Glenorchy decided to adopt that policy.
Throw to the Director of Infrastructure and Works.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I don't think the policy necessarily excludes council from ongoing looking at different alternatives. Certainly, from our perspective, we'll continue to look at how we can use reusable materials, for example, and recycled materials as part of the construction of our footpaths. I think the other thing to note as part of this policy is we're looking at substantially reducing some of the widths. So actually, we in some areas where we might have, originally put, expanded or put wider footpaths, we're managing council's assets more prudently by having a more sustainable, widths of our footpaths as well. So, but we'll keep looking and we'll keep working with other councils in our region to look at how we can build them more sustainably. So, I think this policy doesn't prevent us from, continuing to look for those opportunities.
Thank you.
Anything further, Alderman Sims?
No, not at this stage. It's great to hear there's room for improvement and continuous improvement in regards to the services we use and the new modern technologies that are coming out. But obviously we do have to weigh that up. Sustainability means cost versus outcome, and sometimes it's more sustainable to use and reuse products that don't appear to be as sustainable. But I appreciate that. Thanks, Ted.
Thank you very much, Alderman Sims. Just a clarification question for the Director of Infrastructure Works on the back of Alderman Sims' question. I know that for our road surfaces we are trialling a number of different reuse products, and particularly in Sunderland Street we're trialling the glass fault product there as well to see how that holds up under heavy loads. Obviously Sunderland Street's a very busy road with heavy vehicles on it. So is that the kind of product that we might be able to trial where we'll be putting asphalt footpaths?
Yes, through you, Mayor. Definitely, coming up, council will be looking at a longer-term asphalt supply contract, and certainly part of our consideration for the supply of asphalt will be those sorts of considerations. I think over in that section of road we had over 100,000 glass bottles that we're able to that we recycled and put back into the road, and I think council has an important role to play in providing markets for recycled products, but we just have to make sure that we can do that at a cost that our community can afford. So through longer term contracts, we're hoping to look at how we can encourage suppliers to provide sharpen their pencils, if you like, and provide us better prices.
Thank you very much, Director. I'll go back to the mover then, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything further to add.
Thank you. I'll put the motion then. I'll ask you to indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
Motion's carried unanimously. Item 7 is Audit Panel Chairs Annual Report 2019 to 2020. Do I have someone to move this item, please?
Alderman Bull.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Someone to second?
Alderman Ryan.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, we went through the Chairman's report at the recent Audit Council meeting, and in view of the fact that the current Chairman of the Audit Panel has only sat for one meeting, he did explain that, and you'll find that the report has been taken on the basis of the previous year's report by the previous Chairman with updated figures, but it does reflect the Audit Chairman's report in true. So I'll just open it to the floor, but I just wanted to add those couple of facts. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Ball. Alderman Ryan, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, just wanted to report back to the council because we had a vote earlier in the year to appoint the new chair for the audit panel, and just wanted to report that everything seems to be working well. We still have all the knowledge of some of the members that have been there for quite a long time. And the chairman, the new chairman, seems to be perfectly competent. The audit panel seems to be working well. So I just wanted to report back on that because we had a vote on that earlier in the year, and nothing further to add.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Alderman Dunsby.
And nothing to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman King.
No, it's fine, Mayor, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
No, happy to receive and note the report.
Alderman Richardson.
No, nothing of value to add, Mayor.
Alderman Fraser.
No, nothing further.
Alderman Carlton.
Nothing for me.
And Alderman Sims.
No, happy to note and receive the report. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll go back to the mover then. Alderman Ball.
No further, thank you.
Lovely. I'll put the motion to indicate for or against. Alderman Ball.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
Excellent. Carried unanimously. Item 18, Procurements and Contracts Monthly Report. Do I have an alderman to move this item, please?
Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Someone to second?
Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Dunsby, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm just happy to open up to the floor for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ball, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you. Happy with the report, thanks.
Alderman Ryan?
No, thank you.
Alderman King?
No, happy with the report, thanks, Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
No, nothing to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Alderman Richardson?
No, nothing to add, Mayor.
Alderman Fraser?
Nothing further, thanks.
Alderman Carlton?
Nothing, thanks.
And Alderman Sims?
Just a question through you, Mayor, maybe to the GM, just in regards to the legal bill and costs. I know we can't delve into details, but when is it forecasted that we're likely going to see that dropped off our report list?
General Manager?
Through you, Mayor. Thanks for the question, Alderman Sims. My understanding is that our intention is what has been to continue to provide that information for transparency reasons. So we have been reporting it for some time.
That's great, so it'll continue to be reported.
That's the intention at this stage.
That's it.
Okay, so how long is it forecasted to continue to happen for?
I believe it's the life of the council as part of our ministerial directions that we report on that.
Sorry, I'm just getting up the paperwork. So we've been having a lot of costs in regards to legal consultations and requirements, considering the positions and situations we've been in as a council. There's been quite a lot of that. We get a lot of community asking about that. When are the legal costs forecasted to slow right down in regards to some of those past issues? Can we have some clarification around that?
Through you, Mayor. We're happy to go back and just have a look at the historic pattern here, but I think what you will find is that there has been a significant reduction in our legal spend under the current administration. The costs that we have here are, if we look at this particular month, we've got some costs around the transaction around the Do and Entertainment Centre, which is clearly significantly important. We've got some costs around the potential disposal of the Berriedale Caravan Park. I think that probably relates to the Section 178 appeal that was brought by members of the community and subsequently discontinued by those community members, and we've also got a building enforcement matter. So I think in the context of an annual budget of around $60 million, I think these numbers are very modest indeed, and much less than what we saw under the previous administration.
Absolutely. Yep, I appreciate that. And so now forecasting moving forward, we're looking at just allocating to active issues and situations as they arise. We're not still paying for the past administration, in short?
That's correct. Clearly, we're still going through there's a Board of Inquiry bill that we're still paying for. We're in the last one or two instalments of that. We've just paid that through this financial year. But now, in terms of the historic costs associated with the Board of Inquiry and those past matters, that's now behind us. So we are, as you quite rightly say, Alderman Sims, we're really talking about legal expenses that come up in the ordinary course of council's business, and as I mentioned before, I think they're modest compared to the past administration.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and thank you for all the hard work, and I think that's something for us and the community to celebrate. So thanks for that clarification.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. I'll go back to the move then, Alderman Dunsby.
Nothing to add. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I'll put the motion if you can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Alderman
For.
Ryan. Thank you. Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
That's carried unanimously. So we move on to item 19. Notice the motions, questions on notice without notice. Do any aldermen have any at this particular point in time in the meeting?
Alderman Dunsby.
Alderman Dunsby, is it 19.1? Is that what you're referring to?
No, I've got another one.
Another one? Okay, thank you. Sorry. I thought you were eager there to jump ahead. Go for it, Alderman Dunsby.
So I'll quickly flick it through by email. So my motion is that Council note the passing of volunteer and Access Advisory Committee member Luke Mays.
I think you've emailed that through to us. Thank you very much. So motion that Council note the passing of volunteer and Access Advisory Committee member.
Yes, Luke Mays.
Luke Mays. Luke passed away just recently, didn't he, Alderman Dunsby?
It certainly did. I'll provide some rationale with that.
Thank you. So under the meeting regulations, I can allow a motion to be moved from the floor. Given the nature of this particular one, I will allow that one to be put up. General Manager, I'll check with you because I need to know the regulations. Any qualified advice need to be given in relation to this one, or
no?
No, the nature of this is fine. So Alderman Dunsby, we have that motion. Can I have someone to second the motion, if I may?
Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Dunsby, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. It was with much sadness that I acknowledge the sudden passing of Luke Mays, a wonderful volunteer in our community and member of the Access Advisory Committee. Luke joined the Access Committee in July 2018, and since he joined the committee, he co-facilitated 3 disability awareness training sessions, assisted in the planning of International Day of People with a Disability last year, and he held the role of stage manager and spoke at the event. Luke's family made special note of Luke's involvement in this activity at his funeral and mentioned how proud they were of Luke for his achievements in this area. He made numerous reports to Council in relation to access issues and provided possible solutions. He was a strong advocate for the Chapel Street Dog Park and its accessibility. He had input into the CBD revitalisation project, along with many other major city projects, including the public toilet strategy, mountain bike park, tracks and trails project, open space strategy, play spaces, public arts projects, access and inclusion toolkit, waste services and priority access projects. He provided advice to Council and external services in relation to access issues on a variety of services and projects. And he was a key member driving the International Day of People with a Disability for 2020 that we have planned later in this year. I also want to acknowledge and thank staff member Elisa Ryan for her compassion and support of committee members during this sad time, and also express my appreciation and admiration to fellow members of the Access Advisory Committee who attended the celebration of his life. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor. I just acknowledge the great work that he did and his sad passing. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. Alderman Ryan?
No, nothing from me, thanks.
Alderman King?
Alderman Dunsby covered it beautifully, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I thank Alderman Dunsby for bringing this motion to us. It is indeed sad to note the passing, and I note particularly my fond memories of Luke's engagement with the dog park, and it's thanks to him that people using wheelchairs are able to access the park with their dogs.
Alderman Richardson?
I think it's been said, Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Fraser?
No, nothing further, thanks.
Alderman Carlton?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Dunsby. I have had the pleasure and privilege of getting to know Luke over the last 12 months and was incredibly sad to hear of his passing, and I was able to attend the celebration of his life last week, and it was just wonderful to hear his family talk about the role that the Access Committee has played in Luke's life, and the joy and value that he got out of being part of the organising committee for International Day for People with a Disability last year. So it's someone that we're going to miss very terribly, and you know we really appreciate all that he's contributed, and I know with the Access Committee it's something that we're going to be looking at this week when we meet to look at how we might celebrate his achievements and his contribution ongoing into the future.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims?
No, I didn't know him personally, but I think on behalf of the council, we'd like to wish his family the most sincere condolences and goodwill in the future. And I'm sure his contribution will live on throughout the council and the decisions made in that space ongoing. So thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. And likewise, on behalf of the council, I had the pleasure of knowing Luke, and he certainly was a character and brought such passion to working with us in terms of improving accessibility for all in our community. So I'm very grateful for his life and celebrate his life. And at this really difficult time for many in the community who loved and treasured Luke, particularly his family and friends and these fellow Access Advisory Committee members. We want to wrap our love and support around them at this very difficult time and celebrate his life and remember him with great fondness. So thank you now to Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. Appreciate those kind words. He was also a man of great humour, and it was his intention to be part of a Christmas challenge to the Mayor this year, and he had intentions of being our Michael Jackson moonwalker in a wheelchair. So we're certainly going to miss that input. So if there is anybody out there that can fill those boots, they're very large boots to fill. We look forward to it. But as I said, we will support one another through this committee and going forward, and acknowledge the condolences to go to his family. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Alderman Dunsby. I'll put the motion if you can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull?
For.
Alderman Ryan?
For.
Alderman Dunsby?
For.
Alderman King?
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
For.
Mayor Johnston is for. Alderman Richardson?
For.
Alderman Fraser?
4.
Alderman Carlton?
4.
And Alderman Sims?
4.
The motion's carried unanimously. I'll ask if there are any other notice of motion or questions on notice without notice during open council. If there are no further ones, we'll move on then to item 19.1 as a notice of motion submitted by Alderman Dunsby, landfill fees for trailers. Alderman Dunsby, did you want to move the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, please.
So moving the motion that's that determination of trailer size mirror the current state. That one? Lovely. So
Thank
moved
you.
Alderman Dunsby. Someone to second, please.
Alderman Bull.
Thank you. Alderman Bull. Alderman Dunsby, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, certainly. I've added some information there in the rationale, and it was certainly an experience of one user at the landfill. I'm not sure whether others have experienced this. And it was in regard to the determination of the trailer as determined by the axle. So a dual axle trailer was determined for commercial use, where there is a national and state determination that says that the trailer, the width between the axles can have a determination. And I've provided references there to where that is provided at a national and state level. My thoughts around this were it took away the discretion or arguments that may occur in determining this. If this information was put very clearly, it puts the staff in good stead to be able to respond to a determination of a load, and for the person who takes the trailer there that may be in dispute, that there's a very clear definition that's there. I note that the report goes into the determination of the loads by their waste, but my thoughts around this were just incorporating these details around trailer determinations to make it easier for the staff and very clear for users of our facility of what is the determination of the trailer by the axle measurements.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, happy with everything, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Ryan?
No, nothing to add.
Thank you. Alderman King?
No, that's fine, thanks.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to be clear here, I'm reading the officer's response, and I just want to be clear about the discretion that staff have at the moment. Is that, how do I phrase this? Is that necessary in order to, does that apply fairness at some level? Is that the reason for the discretion? Like, to be clear on that, like if by endorsing this motion, is there going to be room for unfairness?
Is that a question for perhaps our our manager of waste, Alex Woodward?
Okay, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thomas, for your question. At present, there's an ability for our officers to use discretion with these types of things. The rationale behind the single axle trailer is that it is easy to identify with what's there, and a single axle trailer can generally carry, normally it's around 0.5 of a tonne, which we'd consider to be residential. And dual axles are generally up around 3 tonnes. So for us, we'd align that to be saying that it's generally a commercial load. We have had instances in the past where someone has turned up with a dual axle trailer, but obviously they've got just a normal amount of domestic waste, which sort of falls underneath the minimum waste charge anyway, which is $11. But it does provide us with the opportunity. I guess this will obviously provide our staff with. It is very clear that staff would have to make sure that the single axle trailers met those measurements, which. That's something we'd need to have a look at our process to see.
Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
No, I guess I'm just trying to really ascertain, so I can understand the intent of Alderman Dunsby's motion is to ensure a level of fairness, but I just want to understand whether that in trying to ensure a level of fairness for one particular cohort, it could result in unintended consequences for others or for council. Is there anything that you can identify there, Manager of Waste, Alex?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. I guess the intent for the dual axle trailer is there to provide us with, I guess it's easy to distinguish. Now there is an aspect there that there will be a reduction in income if dual axle trailers are permitted to go through at the reduced rate at $80 in compared to the $100 per tonne. But that's generally probably all I can see.
Okay, so this would mean that they weren't, even the commercial operators would get through at a residential rate.
So we do ask if a person is commercial or residential. However, you can't always be sure. So yeah, I'll pass over to my director. He may also have something to comment on there too.
Okay.
Look, through Mayor, I guess the concerns that officers have raised with this motion is that the reason we had a single axle trailer was to distinguish. It's just your standard box trailer, which is usually a 6x4 type trailer, which can carry up to half a tonne. Usually dual axle trailers are larger trailers, and yes, you can get larger single axle trailers, and that's what the intent of our current policy, the current way our operators look at this is as if, is this a domestic trailer load? Is it about half a tonne? And they also look at other things. They look at, is this a commercial operator? What type of waste? How much waste they've got? If you suddenly open it up and say people can have a dual axle trailer and larger trailers, the concern is you just start to open it up to larger vehicles and larger loads. So and it becomes more difficult for our operators to be able to use their discretion, because someone will be able to say, well, I'm allowed a dual axle trailer, and then suddenly you're up for significantly larger loads. And the other point I guess we made in the notice of motion is that we've only ever received one complaint based on this. We've gone back and had a look at that load, and the load that came across in a dual axle trailer was, there was about 30 pallets of wooden pallets on the back of a trailer. And there were also other loads showing substantial obvious commercial type waste. And we think that we backed our toll booth operators and said that we believe that they'd made the right determination. So I guess it's a matter of, we don't think the current system and the way the guys interpret it is broken, and therefore we're recommending that it continues.
Anything further, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I guess my questions are around trying to understand that better, because I do note that whilst I have full respect for Alderman Dunsby bringing this motion and complete faith that it's from a perspective of trying to ensure fairness for our community members, I was, I guess, trying to understand better the potential implications, given we have had only the one complaint from a customer, and that Alderman Dunsby refers to the one community member who raised it with her. So I'm trying to make sure in considering the motion, we are making policy in terms of the bigger, broader application of it, rather than in response to an individual or one complaint. So that's why I'm trying to understand the full picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Richardson.
No, I think I'm right, Mayor. Thank you.
Alderman Fraser.
I'll be going with the council. With the council officers' recommendations on this one.
Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Alderman Dunsby, for bringing this forward. It's been an interesting one to work through because, in my mind, I'm trying to work out what is the actual issue. Is the concern around it actually being residential waste versus commercial waste, and that's what the concern is. And is the sort of the solution changing it from a single axle to a dual axle? Is that the best solution? So I think it's something that we probably need to consider, at a later stage. But and perhaps if I can ask the question to Alderman Dunsby, was it around, was the complaint or the feedback around disputing whether it was residential or commercial?
Alderman Dunsby.
Yeah, at the time that this issue was raised, it was over 12 months ago, I believe. The determination was told that it was around the determination of the trailer, and the person disputed that and brought the legislation that with the trailer determinations through, and the loads that have been referred to recently, they were later loads, but the determination is around the trailer. So it's more to be a tool in the toolbox for the staff members, that they have that even though you might have a small trailer with dual axles, if there's space less than 1 metre apart, it is regarded as a single axle vehicle. So I just wanted to see those particular regulations incorporated into our standards so that it's very consistent, whether it's national, state or in our particular regulations.
And I'm really supportive of having consistent, so that our definitions are consistent with state and with federal, so that everyone's working off the same sort of understanding and definitions. But I think in this instance, I'm just going to, I'll be supporting the council officers tonight, but it's something that I want to have a look at when this comes up again, to ensure that the definitions are consistent and what those implications are, and what the risks are if we do, by adopting that definition, what those sort of risks are to our financial performance.
Thank you, Alderman Carlton. Alderman Sims.
Yeah, I think I'll be, I'm really glad we've had this discussion, and we didn't just move the motion through without having it, because I think hearing the different points of view and, with the staff having that discrepancy anyway, that's already open and meets that issue. But I think the justification doesn't outweigh the outcomes, there's risk. And we've also got to remember our objectives around sustainability and not filling up our tip and promoting that, rather than having less rubbish going to the ground and supporting better practice in justified ways. So sustainability is also a factor, I think, looking at our objectives in that light. But the real question is, when you're looking at it simply, is it fairer and better outcomes? And I don't think it is, when listening to the discussion around the table and the officer's recommendation. I understand bringing it forward and the issue that may take place, but listening that there's only been one as well, to me doesn't outweigh that. So I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. I'll also speak to the motion and thank Alderman Dunsby for bringing this to our attention and concerns. However, in considering how I cast my vote today, I want to reflect on our waste management strategy and some of the key goals or objectives we're trying to work towards. And particularly around our Jackson Street landfill site, it's really important to extend the life of that site, to provide that amenity for our residents as opposed to our commercial sector, and so minimising the amount of waste that goes into there and being able to extend the longevity of that site for our residents is really important. The example that's been provided, which I understand is that the impetus for this particular motion clearly indicates how our officers have used their discretion within the framework that we have at the moment around fees and charges, and has applied their discretion appropriately in this particular instance, where they've identified that a particular transaction is a commercial transaction as opposed to a residential transaction. So I'm not seeing a pattern here of issues with the way the discretion has been applied. So I'm supportive of what the officer has suggested, that we leave it as is, but perhaps look to clarify the signage and the communication around our fees and charges for our community to try and provide that more certainty. But thank Alderman Dunsby for her time and effort into bringing this to our attention, and obviously moving forward, there's something that Council ought to be considering in terms of any trend in customer complaints. So I'll go back to the mover then, Alderman Dunsby.
No, nothing further. I will say that though this was originally triggered and discussed with staff, it was a complaint that was taken to staff, and there was some acknowledgement of the issue, and a complimentary voucher was given at the time to acknowledge that it may not have been handled well in the first instance. So that was one of the drivers for me wanting to bring clarity to this particular situation.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. I'll put the motion. If you can indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
Against.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
Against.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Against.
Mayor Johnston is against. Alderman Richardson.
I think I'm going to abstain from this one.
Abstain. So an abstention is a no vote, Alderman Richardson, just so you're clear.
Right, yes.
Alderman Fraser.
Yeah, against.
Alderman Carlton.
Against.
Alderman Sims.
Against.
So the motion is defeated. The record of the vote is 2 votes for, 7 against and 1 abstention as well. So move on to item 19.2, notice of motion. Alderman Dunsby, no spray register. Alderman Dunsby, would you like to move this motion? Sorry, Alderman Dunsby, you're on mute there.
Sorry, I'd like to alter the motion if I may.
Yes, Alderman Dunsby, it's your motion. You can do as you wish.
Thank you. So the Glenorchy City Council introduced a no spray register in relation to the use of pesticides upon the consideration of a report from Council to be brought to the September 2020 Council meeting.
So upon the consideration of a report, sorry, Alderman Dunsby?
Consideration of a council officer report to come back to the September 2020 council meeting.
I'm just going to check, General Manager, in relation to that, just to make sure your intention is clear, Alderman Dunsby. Are you intending for a report to come back to council, but if the way you've got it worded at the moment, council would then be required to endorse that, to introduce it, no matter what the report said? Are you seeking a report to come back to council, or are you seeking to bind council to a decision with a report?
Well, can it say with a view to introducing a no spray register?
The council, can I suggest, sorry, Alderman Dunsby, tell me if it's not what you're intending, but that council requests a report to come back to the September 2020 council meeting to consider the introduction of a no spray register in relation to the use of pesticides.
Yes, I'm happy with that. Well, I think there's 2 relations in there though. Maybe we just need the one.
Is that another one? General Manager, did you get that one down? So council requests a report presented to the September 2020 council meeting regarding the introduction of a no spray register in relation to the use of pesticides. Does that sound okay? I'll just make sure we've got that recorded correctly. We've got that down? Yeah. Excellent, fantastic. Alderman Dunsby, I'll just seek a seconder for your motion there. Do we have someone to second Alderman Dunsby's motion?
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Dunsby, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thank you. It's the aim of the no spray register is to assist council to meet the council's general right to know about pesticide use in outdoor public areas. I use the term pesticide because it is the overarching thing that includes herbicides and everything else. And there may be from time to time where it might not be weed management, it might be pest management as well. So I deliberately used the word pesticides in my rationale there. I have detailed quite a bit of positive outcomes that can come from the no spray register. And I've noted from members of the public that have raised this with me that there are concerns that they would like to have an ability to have a control over what may be used within the vicinity of their properties as well. And having some discussions about this, I realised that the council the aldermen around the table would appreciate the council officer's report to come forward and have those views there to be considered should this go ahead, which I would sincerely hope that we can get that on board. So I'm happy to throw it open for discussion.
Thank you, Alderman Dunsby. Alderman Bull, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, I'm happy with the motion, thank you, and would look forward to a report coming forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan.
Nothing really to add. I just, I'm happy that that really the vote on this is being deferred because I'd like to see the data before I make any kind of commitment. So I'm happy with the new amended motion.
Thank you, Alderman Ryan. Alderman King.
No, I support the previous alderman's comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm happy to support the amended motion. I thank Alderman Dunsby for bringing this for our consideration. I have been contacted by a community member in relation to seeking a no spray register. I know it's something that other councils have introduced, and there certainly is appetite in our community for it. But importantly, we need to consider what the administrative and financial implications are for council, and if we are to introduce it, you know, what does it mean we can't do? We've started having these conversations that, you know, yes, if we do this, then what does it mean we don't do, because we can't do everything. So I think that will be an important consideration for us to have information on when the report comes to us in September. It is an important issue, but we need to be mindful of how we respond within our scope and budget.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Alderman Richardson.
I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Alderman Fraser.
Happy to support it.
Thank you. Alderman Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to support the amended motion. I just wanted to know if the September council meeting is a doable time frame to have a report back to us.
General Manager or the Director of Infrastructure and Works, Ted. He's giving me the thumbs up there, so yes, it's Ted.
Through you, Mayor. Yes, look, we've already, the maintenance crew have already been doing some work on this one. So, and our neighbouring councils have also done a lot of heavy work on it. So we'll be able to get something back for the September council meeting.
Thank you.
And Alderman Sims.
Yes, I recall these discussions occurring at some workshops and questions being raised and answered, and knowing the space that our Director of Infrastructure was working in and heavily understanding those aspects is really important, because it does link also to lots of other strategies and outcomes for our city, considering these types of things. So very pleased with that, and to see that it's great to hear that you have been tracking well with that and you're ready to put something up next month. Exciting. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Sims. I'll go back to the move for Alderman Dunsby.
Thank you. I wasn't being prescriptive with the September direction for the policy. I did see that in the council officer's report, and I look forward to reading the documentation and hopefully an implementation of the no spray register.
Thank you very much. So I will put the motion, if you indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
For.
Alderman King.
For.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
For.
Mayor Johnston, for. Alderman Richardson.
For.
Alderman Fraser.
For.
Alderman Carlton.
For.
And Alderman Sims.
For.
The motion's carried unanimously. That being the last item for our open council component, can I have someone please move that we go to closed council?
Alderman Ryan.
Thank you. Alderman Ryan, sign to second, please.
Alderman Bull.
Thank you, Alderman Bull. I'll put the motion, if you indicate for or against. Alderman Bull.
For.
Alderman Ryan.
For.
Alderman Dunsby.
4.
Alderman King.
4.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
4.
Mayor Johnston is 4. Alderman Richardson.
4.
Alderman Fraser.
4.
Alderman Carlton.
4.
And Alderman Sims.
4.
That's carried unanimously. So that ends our open section of our council meeting. Thank you very much for joining us on Facebook. I hope that you're well and travelling okay during these COVID-19 days. Please reach out and remember to support your family and friends during these difficult times. And we look forward to seeing you online again for our September council meeting. Thank you very much.